and nod. Nor make me cuff the word into your ear. Never a whit you, Kapata, have learned. Sleepily swaying amidst the listeners here. Thus the Exalted One upbraided him strongly, as if he had pierced his very bones, as if a fierce elephant had gone down into his path. And he, greatly disturbed, established insight, and soon won arahantship. Upon that he repeated the verses which had been the goad that sent him to the goal, so that they became his declaration of Anna. Thera. Kumarakasapa. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Kumarakasapa. Reborn in this Buddha age at Rajagaha, his mother was the daughter of a counselor. She, having failed to gain her parents' consent to leave the world while yet a maiden, was married, and obtained her husband's consent to take monk's orders, not knowing at the time that she had conceived. When later the Bhikkhunis saw her condition, they consulted Devdutta, who replied, "She is no true nun." They then consulted him of the 10 powers. He entrusted the matter to Thera Upali, who convened certain residents at Savatthi, including the lay patroness Visakha, and in full assembly, the king being present, pronounced the sister to have been with child when she took monk's orders. The Lord approved his decision. So she brought forth her child at the vihara, a boy like a golden statue, and the king reared him, and brought him later on to the Lord to join the monk's order. Because he joined as a youth, and they would ask, when the Exalted One said, "Send for Kasapa, or give this fruit or biscuit to Kasapa, which Kasapa?" And because of his royal rearing, he became known as Kumarakasapa, even after he was grown to manhood. Now while he exercised himself for insight and learnt the Buddha's word, he lived in dark wood. Then a deva, one who had with him done only the mountain hermit's course, and having become a non-returner, had been reborn as a great Brahma in the pure abodes heaven, determined to show Kumarakasapa a method for attaining the paths and fruits. And he came into the dark wood, and showed him 15 questions which only the Lord could answer. So he asked them before the Exalted One and learnt them. Upon which, having conceived insight, he attained arahantship. Upon that, having been ranked by the Lord foremost among those who had the gift of varied and versatile discourse, he reviewed his career, and under the aspect of praising the virtues of the Jewel Trinity Jewel, declared his Anna. All hail the Buddhas, and all hail the path S. Hail the blissful path by our Lord created, in which he that did hear may be enrolled, and come to realize a path like ours. Down countless ages have its members come, reborn now as this material body, now as that. But this for them is now the very last, the final confluence of the factors 5. Influx of rebirth and mortality. Now come they never more again to be. Thera. Dhammapala. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Dhammapala. Reborn in this Buddha age, when the Lord had passed away, in the kingdom of Avanti, as a Brahmin's son, he was named Dhammapala. As he was returning from Takasila, his school days finished, he saw on his way a certain Thera in a single cell, and hearing from him the path, he believed, left the world, and acquired sixfold abhiññā. Now, as he was ruminating in the bliss of his achievement, 2 novices climbed a tree at the vihara to pick flowers, and a branch breaking, they were falling. Seeing them, the Thera caught them with his hand, and by his iddhi power placed them unhurt upon the ground. And he taught them, saying, "The monk who while young has given himself wholly to carry out the Buddha's plan, who keeps vigil in a sleeping world, not vainly, not for nothing he spends his days. So let the wise man, so let him who remembers that which Buddhas have enjoined, devote himself to faith and righteousness, to know the blessedness they brought to us, and the true vision of the holy path." Thera. Brahmali. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Brahmali. Reborn in this Buddha age in the kingdom of Kosala, as a Brahmin's son, he was named Brahmali. When grown up, being impelled by the fulfilling of conditions, Distress arose in him because of the continual round, and, through associating with spiritually minded friends, he left the world, and took his exercise to a forest. From the maturity of his knowledge he soon developed insight, and acquired sixfold abhiññā. Living thereafter in the bliss of the paths, the Thera, so versed in compassing endeavor, uttered one day these verses, on behalf of the bhikkhus in that forest, concerning devotion to endeavor. In whom the senses have been hushed to calm, like horses well tamed by the charioteer. In whom no vain conceits are found, nor aught of poison fumes survives, a man like this may stir up envy even among the gods. In me the senses have been hushed to calm, like horses well tamed by the charioteer. In me no vain conceits are found, nor aught of poison fumes survives. One such as I may stir up envy even among the gods. Thera. Mogarajan. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Mogarajan. Reborn in this Buddha age in a Brahmin's family, and named Mogarajan, he studied under the Brahmin Bavaria. Growing distressed, he became an ascetic. He was one of the 16, Ajita and others, who was sent by Bavaria to the Lord to interview him. When Mogarajan had asked his question and been answered, he attained arahantship. Thereafter he acquired distinction by wearing rough cloth which caravanners, tailors, and dyers had thrown away. For that reason the Lord assigned him the first place among those who wore such rough clothing. He by that realizing his aspiration made many ages ago. At another time, from want of care and through former karma, pimples and the like broke out and increased on his body. Judging that his lodging was infected, he spread out a couch of straw in the Magadha fields, and there, though it was winter, he lodged. Of him, waiting one day upon the Lord, and paying his respects, the latter of his courtesy inquired in the following verse. Well, Mogarajan, you skin sufferer! You blessed of heart and constantly serene! Comes the time when winter nights are cold. And you a monk poor, how will you manage? Thus asked, the Thera explained the matter to the Lord. Rich are the cornfields of the Magadhis, and thriving, every one, I have heard it said. My little straw-built canopy did please. Better than others' way of finding comfort. Thera. Visakha the Pankalai's son. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Visakha the Pankalai's son. Reborn in this Buddha age in the kingdom of Magadha, as the son of a district Raja, he was named Visakha. But because he was the son of the daughter of the king of the Pankalas, he became known afterwards as the Pankalai's son. At his father's death he succeeded to his title, but when the Lord came to his neighborhood he went to hear him, and believed, and left the world. Following him to Savatthi, he established insight, and acquired sixfold abhiññā. Upon that, in kindness to his own folk, he visited his native place. And as people kept coming to hear him, he was one day asked, "How many qualities, your reverence, should a man acquire to be a preacher of the path?" The Thera taught them the essential feature of such an one as follows. Let him not be puffed up, nor other folk belittle, nor despise, nor yet molest the victor who has overcome the world. Nor let him drag the praises of himself before the public. Let him be sober, meek, and moderate in speech and virtuous. Is there a man who can the truth discern, though it be very subtle and refined? Who skilled to measure spiritual growth is yet of lowly, and of gentle mind? Who shapes his life by rule of them that are awakened ones? For him, nibbana is not hard to find. Thera. Khuddhaka. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Khuddhaka. Reborn in this Buddha age at Rajagaha, as a Brahmin's son, he was named Khuddhaka. When he saw the Lord tame the elephant Dhanapala, he believed, and left the world. Working at his training, he lived in the Indrasaltree cave. One day as he sat in the entrance of the cave, looking down over the Magadha field, a great storm cloud filled the sky with piled up masses, and amid deep, lovely roars, the rain camo down. The flock of peacocks, hearing the thunder, joyously uttered their caw cry, and danced around. The touch of the storm breeze brought coldness and comfort to the Thera in his cavern lodge, so that with a suitable temperature his mind became concentrated. He entered the avenue of his exercise, and, discerning that the favorable moment was come, he praised his practice, breaking out in these verses. Listen! How the peacock's calls make the clouds ring! Fair-crested, fine their feathers and blue throat, graceful in shape and pleasant in their cry. And see how this broad landscape watered well lies greenery clad beneath the dappled sky. Healthy your frame and fit and vigorous, to make good progress in the Buddha's rule. Come then and grasp the rapt thought of the saint, and touch the crystal bright, the subtly deep, the elusive mystery, even the way where dying comes not, too great to express. And so the Thera, addressing himself, attained under seasonable conditions to mental concentration, and evoking insight, one arahantship. Upon that reviewing what he had caused, with zest and joy he repeated those lines as the declaration of Enna. Thera. Anupma. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Anupma. Reborn in this Buddha age in a wealthy family at Kosala, his beauty obtained him the name of Anupma, unmatched. Come of age, he felt the working of the efficient cause, forsook the world, and lived in the forest, practicing for insight. But his mind hovered about external objects, revolving about his theme for meditation, so that he thus rebuked himself. O Siddha! Gone searching after things that please! O you that shapes many a shaft of doom! There and there only do you ever tend, where block and stake rise at the bitter end. I call you, heart, the breaker of my luck. I call you, heart, despoiler of my lot. Lo! He whom many an age you could not find. The Lord now is come, be it not that I to wreck and ruin be consigned. Thus addressing his own consciousness, the Thera developed insight, and won arahantship. Thera. Vajjita. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Vajjita. Reborn in this Buddha age in a wealthy Kosalan family, after deceasing from the Brahma world, he ever wept in his mother's arms. And because he could not endure the touch of a woman, he came to be called Vajjita, abstaining. Come of age, he saw the Lord work the twin miracle, and believing, he entered the monk's order, and acquired sixfold abhiññā. Upon that remembering his former existence, he was stirred with holy emotion, and said, A traveller I these long, long ages past, and round about the realms of life I have whirled. One of the many folk and blind as they. No Aryan truths had I the power to see. But earnestly I strove for light and calm. And now all shattered lies the endless way. All future borns abolished utterly. Now comes never more rebirth for me. And this became the Thera's declaration of Enna. Thera. Sandhita. Adapted from the archaic translation by Mrs. Rhys Davids. Sandhita. Reborn in this Buddha age in a wealthy family of Kosala and named Sandhita, he heard, when come of age, a sermon on impermanence, and this alarmed him so that he entered the monk's order. Through the maturity of his knowledge he established insight, and acquired sixfold abhiññā. Recalling his own former life. How after the passing away of Sikhi Buddha he had worshipped at the Bodhi-tree and acquired discernment of impermanence, he declared his winning of the goal, by that efficient cause, in these verses. Beneath the tree the holy Bodhi-tree, clad in the glory of its spring green. To me meditating and mindful came a thought. A Buddha-burdened thought. It is 130 aeons since it came. Natheless so fruitful proved that thought in me. By force of that over the intoxicants. The victory is won.